Hi, today I thought I'd do a buy nothing makeup tutorial. I don't know about you, but am feeling slightly overwhelmed at the amount of new products at the moment and the launches and the similarities between lots of things. And I feel like when I was doing my makeup yesterday, I was using a palette which is probably about 2 years old, maybe 3 years old, or maybe older actually, thinking about it. And how much I liked using it, and how, although I've used a lot of the colours, a lot of the new palettes that launch have similar shades, and how I wouldn't bother to buy those new palettes because I've got a really nice set of colours that are very similar to that. And I just felt like I'd do a tutorial today where I wouldn't talk about products per se. So if you want to know what I'm using, I will link below, although some of them aren't really available anymore because they're quite old, or that they are something which is what I would call best in class. So of course I love new products, don't get me wrong, I'm in the makeup industry and I like to see new things. I think I'm just slightly saturated on the consumerism front at the moment, and I feel I'm kind of if you know what I mean. But if something is new and I consider it to be best in class, so if I try it and I think, yeah, that's way better than what I was using before, then of course I embrace that newness and I love it. Or if it's something which is very unique and something different than I've had before, or I just fall in love with something, then of course that happens to us all. But I thought today I'd just do a look, and you can obviously make it your own, and the idea is that you just use what you have. So I'm just starting with foundation. Actually I put some serum on my skin first and some moisturiser, and a buff all over. This is a foundation that I've used for on and off for years, and it's a kind of medium coverage and a buildable coverage. So I'm not going to use too much because my skin's good at the moment. I don't know about you guys, but this time of year I've not been going out much at night, so I've been doing lots of masks and using a facial toning machine, and got time on my hands. And don't forget, if your skin tone is slightly different, you can mix old foundations with new. Obviously not really old foundations, but anything that's still in date and still good, maybe it's not quite the right colour, you can always mix them together. And you can certainly do that with lots of different brands as well now, because lots of them are basically the same. Most of them are silicone and water, or water and silicone, so you'll find that you can probably mix together an awful lot of your the products that you have to create the perfect shade. So next I'm going to use concealer. This is a product I haven't had for very long, but I thought it was really good, so that's why it's on in my more newer products, I guess, kit. So I'm just doing a little bit of pinpoint concealing as well. I'm going to take my time with this because it's got a few marks. And with your concealers, again, you can mix the colours. If you haven't got the exact right colour, you might have some old concealers, maybe in tubes that there's not much left in them. So just cut them open, take out the product and put them in a little clear pot like the Muji pot, so you can screw the top on. And then you can mix with something newer and make a colour that really suits you. And if you have a particular type of concealer that's maybe a bit drying for this time of year, for someone that gets dry, then you can mix in some moisturiser just to keep it a little bit more moisturising, a bit more hydrating. Next I'm going to use some powder. At the moment I'm just using it around the centre of my face. Powders don't change that much. I mean, the technology does change, but it's not something that radically changes. So if you have a nice one from a brand that you like, you don't need to kind of buy new powders all the time. New pigment coatings and things come out, but not that regularly. Next I'm going to use some liquid blush, an old favourite. Very liquidy, this one. I find it's good to use your foundation brush to push it into the skin. And then on top of that, a little bit of cream highlighter. So I've been using this blush for about 7 years, which is nothing compared to how long I've been using this highlighter, which is probably about 15 years, so it's scary how time flies. But my point is, I still like them, and they are still really good. So on my eyes, I'm going to use this palette, which is about 4 years old, but I still really like the colours and I still use it regularly. And I do see new palettes that have these colours, but then I don't need them because I have them already. And I like to use this palette to create, well, I can do a kind of natural look with it, or I can do a smoky look with it. So it's quite versatile. So I think when you've got a palette that has some really good colours in that you love and you know you can create lots of looks with, I feel like you're kind of, you know, you're done really. Obviously it's nice to have other palettes to create other looks or that have different shades or different effects in, but how many of the same kind of palettes can one girl have really? And then there's almost like a purpley brown colour I really like to use for just going into the socket there. I'm just going to blend off the edge on this eye, which is a little bit too winged out for the effect that I want. Underneath I'm going to use the first colour that I used in the slightly goldeny one, just along the lower lashes. And these aren't unusual colours, they're colours that I bet you've got already. I mean, I'm sure if I came to your house and I looked through your makeup collection, I can guarantee I would find these colours somewhere in a palette that you own. And the thing is about dry makeup, so like eyeshadows and things, of course if it's a liquid it goes off much quicker. So particularly things that come into contact either with air or oils in the skin or tears. So that's why mascaras really go off quickly, because it's a wet product. So wet products already go off quicker than dry products. And every time you take your mascara out, you get air in. So there's air and there's water, they're mixing. And then when you touch your eyes, obviously at the roots of your lashes, you have moisture from your eyes as well. So that's why things like mascaras don't last. And the same can be true of any wet product. So if you have, for example, a liquid foundation which is not in an airtight pump and you're putting your fingers in or putting sponges in, that can also go off quickly. However, when you've got dry products, so eyeshadows, which as long as you're using clean brushes and you're not, you know, your general hygiene is good and you're just using it on yourself, then powders do last a lot longer than wet products. That's what I'm saying. So don't feel that the same rules apply between wet and dry products, because they just don't. Choosing the lightest shade from the palette, which is just a classic creamy colour. So next I'm using the darkest shade from the palette with a wet brush. And this is just a nice way of getting a new eyeliner. If you want to use a coloured liner or something just a little bit different, then just wet your fine brush, and most eyeshadows will work. You can just scrape off a bit of powder and mix it with water. Also going to put a tiny bit of that along the lower. For brows I'm going old school with a pencil. Obviously there are lots of amazing brow products out in the last few years. Brows have been, I guess, the biggest kind of growth area in a way. However, sometimes I just like to go back to my roots and use a pencil that I've used for probably the whole of my career. Which still delivers. curl of the lashes. Lots of black mascara. Mascara is something that you do need to replace and buy often, as I mentioned before. Now I'm using lip pencil all over my lips, and I'm using that to increase the size of my lips. And then a tinted lip balm colour. This is just a colour I've loved using for quite a few years. And that's it. That is my buy nothing makeup tutorial. Everything that you've got at home already, just reviving and reusing and having a break, I think, from trying to decipher out of the 75,000 million new products which one you like. I've just decided I'm not looking at any new products. I'm just sticking to what I like for a while. I'm sure I'll get back on the horse at some point, back in the saddle. But for the time being, I think I'm just maxed out on it, and I can still create good looks and whichever products I use, and so can you. Hope that was helpful, and I'll see you soon.